All right, guys. In this episode on the series on taking film to digital and doing the edit, sound mix, and color grading, I'm going through the sound mixing now. So this is once again, this is a series I've been doing, and if you want to watch the previous episodes, you can check out my playlist that this is embedded in, and you can watch the series from beginning to end. This one I'm going to be showing how to clean up. Once we got our dialogue pretty much edited here. I'm going to be showing you guys how to clean this up and do a basic sound mix in Premiere to make it sound a lot better. So as we play through this here, I've added this shot at the beginning, kind of this opening shot until the lady passes by here. She passes by, there she goes, and then it cuts to her walking over with the mop, dipping it in. And we have somebody cueing the actor, yelling "Enter." So what we're going to have to do is clean that up. So we like the sound of the mop here going into the bucket. And we're going to cut out that enter. So right now I've got my visuals locked. In fact, I'm going to make all my tracks here, video tracks, because we're just going to be working with audio. And the other thing I'm going to do is go under the audio arrangement here, up at the top here. So we opens up this panel so we can start doing audio mixing. And I'm just going to be concentrating on my audio here. So let's play through. And there's the enter right there. So I'm going to do Control K, and it will cut. And I'm going to play through this. Enter. And Control K and cut again, and we're going to get rid of that little audio section right there.
Should I clean the floor?
Okay, so now we've got rid of that audio, but we need to find something to fill that gap there. So when that cuts away there, let's see. I might even be able to borrow the audio from this portion right here. So I'm going to borrow this audio here. What I'm going to do is I'm going to hold down Alt and grab this and duplicate it. And we're going to move this over. And I'm just going to get that kind of that little splashing noise. And actually that matches up pretty well there. So I can move this around until I get it matched up. Probably needs to go over a couple more frames because it looks like when the mop is going down. So I'm going to grab that. We're going to shorten that up. I'm going to Alt and arrow that up. And now we've got... Actually, that works pretty well. But another thing that we can do to kind of smooth this out, by the way, if you keep selecting tracks like this or blank areas, you can hold down Control-Shift-A. Control-A selects everything. Control-Shift-A deselects everything. So now let's clean this. Let's smooth that out a little bit. I'm going to deselect everything, Control-Shift-A. I'm going to arrow up and land on that edit. I'm going to hold down Control-Shift-D. We'll add a crossfade. So I'm going to put, now I got this crossfade. It will turn up this clip's audio while turning this one down and blend them together. Let's see how that sounds. That sounds pretty good. I'm going to arrow down. And if I heard a little bit of that enter or whatever he says right there, I can grab this and I can shrink it down a little bit and make it a little tighter. I can even shift it over to the left or over to the right, and then to help avoid using that audio. See, if I pull this over to the right, listen, and let's extend that a little bit more. Eventually you're going to hear the enter right there because now it's fading out clear over here. So I'm just going to undo, and right there actually works pretty well. Arrow down to jump to the edit. Control-Shift-D. Oops, this is selected here, so Control-Shift-A, Control-Shift-D. And let's shrink that down a little bit and listen. And that blends together really, really well. So what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to go through just cleaning up the up the dialogue, and then we're going to go through and we're going to start adding ambient noise. We're going to add sound effects. I'm going to arrow back here, and I'm going to do a Control-Shift-D to add a fade in. Oops, that's selected. Control-Shift-A, Control-Shift-D, and then we're going to fade this in when she walks in the frame there. Okay, the next thing we're going to start working on here is we're going to smooth out these areas. We're going to fill in the blanks with some audio, so it doesn't, like right here.
No pepper.
It dips out as he walks over.
No.
And we're going to have to kind of clean that up as well. So let's start doing this. Let's start cleaning up our dialogue track. Now with Premiere Pro, as long as you're under the audio layout, you have this panel open on the side here. And I can select an audio clip here, and I can assign it as what type of audio it is. This is technically, even though there's no speaking on this is technically a dialogue track I'm working with because I'm going to be cleaning up dialogue. So just to make sure everything's conforming all the same, normally this would be ambient, but I am going to assign this as dialogue because I need to match it in with all this other dialogue here. So I'm going to hit dialogue and assign it as a dialogue track. And the first thing I'm going to do is go under loudness, and I'm going to tell this to auto match. What this is going to do, since I am in a stereo environment and dialogue should be hitting around -12 in a stereo environment, the auto match is going to try to match dialogue to that level. So I'm going to hit auto match, and it's going to gain it. It thinks it's dialogue right now, so it has really boosted it up quite a bit. And that's too loud. It's bringing it up, but you notice it's bringing it up around -12. But that did boost it. I need to bring a little boost to this, so I'm gonna correct that. Hit G for gain, and I boosted it up 23.6 decibels, which is quite a bit. So I'm gonna bring this down about. I'm gonna go negative. So the way you bring up gain is you select the clip, hit G. I'm gonna go negative. Let's try 16 to bring that down a bit. So now we do have some gain on that. Let's listen to it. Up around -16. That sounded pretty good. I'm hearing a little bump and rumble there from the microphone. It's like some errors hitting the microphone or something. So I am going to go down to repair, and I'm going to reduce rumble here. Right around 5, this seems to be a little bit aggressive on reducing it, and you can hear some kind of, you'll start hearing, the more aggressive you get, you start hearing some processing noise, and the audio starts sounding processed. So I'm going to turn this down a little bit and just kind of get it around maybe like 2.5 and see what that sounds like. See if that gets rid of that rumble. That rumble sounds a lot better. It doesn't have that little bassy rumble. I'm going to select this clip and do the same. You can do it in multiple clips if you want to. So I'm going to select this clip. I'm going to assign it as dialogue. I'm going to auto match. It will boost it up. I'm going to select this, go gain, -16. See, I could have just selected both these clips and done it at the same time. Hit OK, and let's play through it and see how that sounds. Okay, now we got some dialogue. So this is the auto match should work pretty well on her dialogue here. I'm going to hit auto match, and let's listen to that.
Should I clean the floor?
And her audio is a little too loud. It did a pretty good job on auto matching it to -12, but I'm just going to select it, do G for gain, and bring it down maybe 4 decibels. And now see how that sounds.
Should I clean the floor?
No. And now it barely, because she's kind of soft-spoken, so it's just barely reaching -12. That's pretty good right there. But during the beginning, the audio here is a little too loud, so what we can do is we can mix this. Right now we've got our little audio waveform. If you're not seeing this, if you're not seeing your little audio line there, your volume line, you hit Shift plus and it brings it open. If it's still not showing it on these bigger clips, on this bigger track height, you have to go to wrench and say Show Audio Keyframes. Make sure that's check marked. And that's this line right here. That's your audio keyframe. I'm going to move over this gray area, hold down Alt and scroll up to make it a little bigger. Move over here, and I'm going to hold down Control and click, and I'm going to add a keyframe there. Because I want this to kind of be quieter and then turn up when she speaks. So I'm going to put another keyframe over here, and I'm going to grab this keyframe and turn it down. And now it'll be kind of turned down, and when she speaks, it'll kind of mix, and it'll mix up and turn it up a little bit. Let's listen to that.
Should I clean the floor?
And there, that's less obvious. All right, let's go. A couple other things we can do here is we can clean this up a little bit and really bring out the clarity in her voice, bring out her voice. We can go down, scroll down, and we can select EQ, and we're going to EQ this for a female voice. It gives a subtle boost on the female voice here. And also, another thing you can do is enhance that speech here. We enhance speech for female. It really, a combination of those, I found that a combination on EQ and enhanced speech really brings out the voice. If you're having some trouble, you can use clarity as well, but don't necessarily need it in this because we got pretty good audio. Let's listen to it.
Should I clean the floor?
And it really brings it out. It's a little tinny, but we're going to clean this up later on. We're going to be adding some ambient noise. In fact, if we want to remove some noise out of this as well, we can scroll up and reduce noise. And I'm going to turn that down once again to maybe about around 2.5, and let's listen.
Should I clean the floor?
No.
And that's starting to sound pretty clear. The more we boost hers up, the more noise is going to be because the microphone wasn't so close to her mouth right there. We do have better audio later on. But we're going to blend this in. We're going to smooth things out. But right now I'm going to, as we go from this clip, as we go from her clip to his clip.
Clean the floor?
No, keep cooking.
His audio is a little too loud. I'm going to select it. I'm going to select his audio, and I'm going to assign it as dialogue. Now that this is assigned as dialogue, I'm going to hit auto match. This should turn his down a little bit. You saw that drop down a little bit. Let's listen to it.
No, keep cooking.
And I'm going to just bring his down maybe 2 decibels. Hit G for gain. It did a pretty good job, but I'm still bringing it down maybe 1 decibel. -1, enter. I brought it down 1 more decibel.
The floor?
No, keep cooking.
And that sounds pretty good. I'm going to blend these together a little bit by arrowing up, landing on the edit, Control-Shift-D, and adding a small cross dissolve on this, just to blend it together. We don't want to extend that too far or you'll hear audio bleeding over from each other's clips.
Clean the floor.
No, keep cooking.
And that sounds really good. So I'm going to do the same thing, arrow down. This probably needs a little cross dissolve here. Control-Shift-A to deselect, Control-Shift-D to select, or to add a cross dissolve. Crossfade, sorry, it's not a cross dissolve, it's a crossfade. As I play through this,
Keep cooking.
Add salt.
okay, this needs a gain. This needs a gain. I'm going to go to auto match. Boost that up. Let's listen to it.
Add salt or
Oh, and one thing I forgot to do on here is I can do a little EQ on his as well. I can move down just to boost his audio, to boost his voice. I'm going to go to EQ, subtle boost on male, enhanced speech, and male. Let's just listen to the difference there.
No, keep cooking.
And so it got a little bit more clarity to it there. So play through.
add salt or
All right, we did the auto gain on hers. I hear some bumping noises on the microphone again, so I am going to reduce rumble. I am going to reduce noise a little bit, and that's already down to like 2.4. I'm going to bring this down as well. And let's listen to that.
add salt or add pepper.
That got rid of the rumble there. Sounding a little processed, so I'm going to turn those down a little bit more.
Add salt or add pepper.
And I brought that rumble down. I'm going to go down to EQ, female, and enhanced speech, female.
Add salt or add pepper.
And that's really clear, though. That's coming out. That really brought out the clarity of her voice. Let's play through this and see if. But her voice is a little loud,
Add salt or add pepper.
just a teeny bit. Maybe bring it down, maybe 1 or 2 decibels. Let's bring it down 1.5 decibels. Enter,
Keep cooking.
Add salt or add pepper.
and that sounds
No.
good. Okay, so as I'm cleaning up the audio here, I'm going to move on down the line to right here. This clip. Actually, let's hurry and assign that as dialogue, just as we've been doing before, and we're going to EQ that voice to settle, boost, female, enhance speech. All right, so now when we need to do an auto gain on there. So auto match. Gain, bring it down by 1.5 decibels, see what we get.
No salt or no pepper.
We got the noise, clean up the noise, reduce noise.
No salt or no pepper.
And as we get to this little gap right here, there's a gap spread out so it had, so he could sync his audio up with him walking over. So let's
Pepper.
listen. Let's clean his up as well. Auto match, reduce noise, EQ, enhance speech. Okay.
Pepper.
No.
Okay, so what we're gonna do is we gotta fill in this little gap here. So watch what happens. If we pull this backwards, we get a little double audio there.
No pepper.
See, we got her saying,
Salt or no pepper. No pepper.
see that? So the timing on this does not work. If we pull this one over, we get
No.
him saying no. So I gotta get some audio here, and there's some audio right here that might work. No. Right here where he walks out. I just need a little bit to fill in that gap there. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna hit C, and I'm going to cut. That brings up my razor. Cut right there. I'm going to grab this audio and drag it over to fill that gap, and I'm going to back time this back to restore it to what we had. So now we actually have 2 footsteps. Let's see what that sounds like.
Salt or no pepper.
No.
There we go. And we actually kind of added a footstep there. So now I just got to blend those together. I'm going to select both of these. Hold down. I'm going to select all 3 of these clips and go Control-Shift-D, and it adds those crossfades. I need to shorten these crossfades, get them really small so it doesn't bleed over that extra audio. Center that and shrink it down. And let's listen to that.
Salt or no pepper.
No.
That sounds good. It added a couple added an extra footstep there, and we just borrowed from other audio to fill that in, and we got the gaps filled. So I'm going to continue to do this. I'm going to continue to edit this. I'm going to clean up the audio. I'm going to get my audio at the proper levels. I'm going to gain it, going to assign it as dialogue. I'm just going to clean up my dialogue track, and then we're going to come back and kind of look at that and see what I've got. Okay, we're back, and now I've got all the audio cleaned up, and you'll see some spots where I've done some mixing as well, where I bring the audio down and get everything kind of conformed where it sounds kind of good and same level, and got the dialogue cleaned up as much as possible. I've got some audio that are filling in the gaps in between these little cuts here to kind of fill things in. So first thing we're going to do now is we're going to start. We're going to lay an ambient track, and what I've got over here is a clip that was recorded when we were shooting the film. The audio person told everybody to shut up, and we recorded like about 40 to 60 seconds of room tone. So that is called room tone. We're going to kind of lay that down underneath this audio to kind of make everything smooth throughout. So right now I'm going to kind of shrink these tracks down a little bit. I'm going to hold down Alt and scroll over them to shrink them down because I want to make more room for audio mixing down here. So I'm going to grab my room tone. I'm going to drag it and drop it over the whole thing. Actually, let's edit that. I'm going to grab a good portion of it here. And they recorded it a little loud intentionally just so we can kind of mix this and get it to the level that we want. I'm going to put an in point, out point and grab that entire track there. Let me delete this and grab my little audio waveform here and drag it down, drop it in, and we're gonna clean. And we're gonna get this. We're gonna get this cleaned up and leveled here. Let's give this a try here. Go to the beginning and listen to it. Pretty loud. I'm gonna do a fade in at the beginning. Let's go zoom up to this plus plus plus. Control Shift A to deselect. Control Shift D to add a cross dissolve or cross fade. I always call it cross dissolve, but that's not it. This is going to be a little loud, but let's listen to it and see how it compares to the actual voice when they start speaking. So it is a little loud.
Should I clean the floor?
No.
Okay, so let's get that where we think it should be, and that'll help in these gaps here, between these gaps that we don't have filled in, if we have some gaps we haven't filled in. So let's go G for gain, and actually let's do this first. I'm going to select this. I'm going to tell this is ambience. This will help it add a little bit of natural sound to it here. A couple things that we can do here. Let's hit loudness and see what it does when we hit auto match to auto match it for ambient noise. It boosted it up, so that actually didn't. It probably thought this needed to be boosted up, so I'm not going to do that. I'm going to undo, Control Z. We are going to add a little reverb to this and say this is room ambience. Let's listen to that. Very subtle, but I can hear it's got a little bit of reverb to it. Sounded pretty good there. Let's move down here. Ducking, duck against. You can duck it against dialogue here. Let's see what happens if we use some ducking. Ducking basically turns the audio down when people speak. This works better for music, so I'm not sure if this is going to really work or not. Let's give that a try, and we're going to duck it against dialogue. And if you hit this generate keyframes, it'll actually show you what it is doing here, where it's turning down when people are speaking and turned up when people aren't speaking. It's very, very subtle, but it works pretty well. But it looks like it's working pretty well. All right, so we're going to fill in the rest of this ambient noise. I'm going to fill it up for the rest of the scene here. I'm going to grab more audio here, drag it down. We're going to blend those together there. So I'm going to do the same thing here. I'm going to assign this as ambient. We're going to add reverb to it, and we're going to make it room ambience. And I'm going to turn on the ducking for this. It's going to have to do it for this specific clip. I just can't copy and paste this because the dialogue is speaking at different times here. So I'm going to shrink that down to meet the end of the scene here. And where we got the ducking turned on, I'm going to generate the keyframes here, and we'll show the keyframes where it turns it up and down. And I'm going to listen to some of that as well. See how that sounds when it does the ducking. And actually, let's do a transition between these. Control Shift D. Oops, I added one up here, so you got to be careful up there. So I'm going to undo that. I'm going to lock these audio tracks that we're finished with, and now Control Shift D to add my crossfade there.
After the red pepper.
Nothing. Serve it to me.
We eat first?
Yeah, eat. Then clean up.
And I'm finding that I'm not liking the ducking on this. It works well with music, and I don't like what it's doing with the audio here. So I'm going to clear those. So I'm going to clear the ducking off this here and listen to it.
Serve it to me.
We eat.
And it sounds like it needs to be turned down a little bit. Gain, I'm going to go negative, maybe 4 decibels. Now let's listen.
Eat first?
Yeah, eat. Then clean up.
And that sounds like a really natural room tone going on in the background there. So I'm going to do the same thing on this and clear my ducking there. And you turn it back on if you want it. If it works, cool. If not, but it sounds a little inconsistent with when it turns it down. It sounds very noticeable. So let's go back.
We'll keep cooking.
Add salt
Turn that down about 2 decibels.
or add pepper?
No.
No salt or no pepper?
And that sounds pretty good. Now watch this in between here, as it plays in between this gap.
Pepper.
No salt.
I actually took those footsteps out because I want to add my footsteps back in. But that sounds pretty good. It blends these things together. Listen to this in this gap right here where there's no audio.
Pepper?
And it sounds very smooth through these gaps.
Nothing.
Sounds very smooth. So that sounds good. So now that I don't have ducking on this, I can actually just hold down Alt and drag it over to this other scene. It's the same location. So I'm going to put ambient. So I'm going to put room tone on this scene as well.
Okay.
That sounds pretty good. So now even this part where they get up and they walk over and reveals body parts. Sorry for the gore, guys. I should have warned you. Disclaimer, gore. Right there. I'm going to trim this to the end right there where it cuts off. And I've got all my room tone for both my scenes here. I've got 2 scenes and then end credit scene here. So I just need the ambient noise for these 2 scenes here. All right, so next, so now I'm going to lock this track. I'm going to shrink this down, and we are going to start working on sound effects. So let's go to the very beginning, start playing, and the first sound effect that I notice that we need is where she comes walking in. And actually, we've got a couple things going on. We've got the sauce that's cooking here. We have steam coming out, so we want like a bubbling noise. And then when she comes walking by, we want footsteps turning up and kind of getting closer and then passing by until she walks up here and dips the mop in the bucket. We already have the sound for it. Okay, so now we're going to start working on sound effects here. I've got some sound effects that I've brought in, some boiling pot liquid for the when it tilts up to reveal the steaming pot there, and we've got footsteps. I've got a couple different types of footsteps here we're going to be putting in. Usually a Foley artist would be doing these, but I'm going to be doing kind of this basic sound mix on my own, so I'm going to be using footsteps myself. So let's add in our boiling pot right now. I'm going to add 2 layers of this, by the way. I need more tracks. I'm going to do at least 2 tracks for sound effects right now. So I'm going to add a track. It'll drop another track in there for me. I can hold down Alt and scroll up. I'm going to move my video up so I get a little bit more room here because I'm just working with the visuals. In fact, we can lock the video as well. All right, so let's get our boiling pot in here. I'm going to grab this liquid boiling bubbling here, and we got a few different versions to choose from. And that one actually might work best. These come in really, really loud right now, but I'm just going to grab a portion of this, in point, out point, and I'm going to drag this in and drop it right there, and then extend it throughout here. Okay, so we play through this. Obviously, it's going to be too loud. Very loud boiling. I'm going to select that, and we're going to add this as a sound effect. We're going to do a little bit of reverb. We're going to just do a regular room reverb, room reverb right there. Loudness, let's hit auto match, see what it does. It brings it down a bit, but we're probably going to have to bring that down even more. Yeah, it sounds like a big old freaking river boiling there, so I'm going to select that, do gain, and we're going to go negative 10 decibels maybe. Let's try that out. Sounds like that's like a lot of water boiling, so that sound does not sound very natural. Let's try the boiling pot here. I'm going to select that, delete it. Let's try the boiling pot. Going to try this one here, bubbling sauce. That one sounds much better. That'll work. So I'm going to do an in point, out point, grab a little portion of this, drag it down inside, and trim that to the length that I need there. Let's go to the beginning and listen. That's sounding better. Let's go to the beginning, Control-Shift-D, fade in. We're going to assign this as sound effects. Let's see what happens when we do a room reverb. There, that sounds really natural. That sounds good. All right, so we've got the sauce boiling there. When it cuts to this shot, we're still going to have kind of a subtle sauce boiling in the background. Let's get the footsteps in, and then we're going to be working on the next clips here. I'm going to go to footsteps. Let's see what these ones sound like. These are little foot shuffles. So I'm going to grab these footsteps here. And we might have to get these closer together for the speed that she's walking. Let's try this out. I'm going to grab some of these. Drag them down inside and put them on this track. And it's going to be toward the end here. Let's see if she comes walking in. Actually, it looks like it kind of matches up a little bit. It's hard to tell because she's so out of focus there. Let's drag this over into this shot until she finishes. These ones are going to have to really match up when she comes into. Actually, those worked pretty. That kind of matched up. Surprisingly, that was like perfect. So let's see this. Is it? She steps in. That one's a little off right there. You can see the foot steps down. So all we have to do is, let's put a cut on this, shrink this down to where the foot is just right there. I'm going to select this. I'm going to arrow this, Alt, arrow to the left, 2 frames, maybe 1. Let's see how that works. That was perfect. Right now, keep in mind, this is very loud. I'm going to turn it down, but I'm just getting them matched. And then the next foot hits right there. So I'm going to cut this, I'm going to Alt, arrow this over and eat into this clip. Get it right there. Let's see if that matches up. And that matches up. Okay, good. So as we play through this, those match up. They're very loud. So we're going to select all these at the same time. We're going to choose sound effects for these. Let's try an auto balance and see what it gives us. Didn't do much to the audio waveforms there, so don't need. I can undo that. Oops, let's go sound effects. Let's try auto match, see what it does. I turned them way up, so I don't want that. And in some instances, it turns it up, and it shouldn't. So I'm going to hit, let's see what sounds kind of natural here. Here, I'm going to hit gain, G for gain. I'm going to go negative, maybe 10 decibels, and see what it sounds like now. a little better. Maybe gain, let's go G for gain, -4 more decibels and see what it sounds like. We just want them kind of subtle. And that sounds pretty good there. Maybe even like 2 more decibels. Gain, -2, make it more subtle. That sounds pretty good. I got it. Okay. And we are going to add a little bit of reverb to these. I'm going to do the room reverb to give a little bit of natural echo to it. That's probably a little too much reverb, so I'm going to go light reverb and see how that sounds. You can hear the echo on there. That sounds pretty good there. Okay, so now what we've got to do is she approaches here, and we're going to turn this down at first and have it kind of get louder as she gets closer. So let's keyframe this. I'm going to hold down Control, hit it, click right there, click right here, and see how this sounds. Turn this down all the way right there at the beginning, and have it gradually come into the audio turn up as she gets closer. And I'm going to turn that up a little bit because it should be louder right there. Let's try that. Okay, that sounds pretty good. So what I'm going to have to do here with the boiling, as it cuts to this other shot, the boiling will get quieter. So I'm going to grab this Alt and drag this over and copy it. I'm going to get rid of my fade in there. And as we cut from one shot to the next, we're going to hit gain. I'm going to turn this down maybe 8 decibels and see what we get. Now we can hear the sauce boiling in the background, but as we cut away from it, further away, it turns down. So it sounds very natural. Let's do a couple more sound effects here as we play through. The door opens. So we probably want like a creaking door open. So I'm going to get a sound effect and drag it in here. And by the way, I should mention that these sound effects, a lot of these sound effects are ones that I've recorded myself. I've collected some myself. Some of them come from a sound effects library that I've had for some time. And a lot of these are coming from freesound.org. Freesound.org is a website you go and people upload their audio as a large free database, and you can just grab any audio you want there and use it. It's basically free sound that you can use on that website. You have to make a login, and you can use that. And you can download audio from that site. Just have to make like I said, you just have to make a free account. So I've got this door here. Let's work on the door. I'm going to double click on this. All right, we got a door opening. We also have a door creaking here. The door creaking here's right there. The door opening is a good sound, and we have a door shutting. So we got the whole sequence of door right there, which is nice. So I'm going to first of all get the door opening here when he opens up the door. And actually, let's grab the squeak and see how it times out. I'm going to grab that whole first portion there. We're going to drag this down here and to get that to where it needs to be. Let's see where the door opens. Right there. So I'm going to grab this and drag it over so it begins right about there. Let's try that.
Should I clean the floor?
No.
That creak I want a little bit more close to the door opening here. So we've got the door handle turning. Right there. I'm going to move that a little bit back so we hear the door handle turn before he actually opens. And let's solo this just to see if it times out right. I hit solo. It's only playing that track. Right there. I'm going to grab up this audio here, the creak, and I'm going to move it back a little further right there. Let's see how that sounds. And that sounds pretty good. Now it is linked up with the door opening up right there. I'm going to actually move this back a little bit more. I'm going to move both of these back. A few more frames. So you hear the door handle turning and opening. There we go. That sounds really good. So now I can turn off the solo, and we can assign these sound effects. Auto match. Auto match doesn't seem to be working on these sound effects. Way too loud. Yeah, that's really loud. So I'm going to undo that. Control Z. We are going to add our light reverb to it. And we might gain this just a teeny bit. Gain. G, gain, and turn it up. And turn it up 4 decibels. 4, enter.
Should I clean the floor?
Little too loud on the door handle, but I want a little loud on the door creak. G, 4.
Should I clean the...
Even a little bit more. G, try to get 4 more decibels.
Should I clean the floor?
No. Keep.
And there we go. That sounds pretty good. All right, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to play through this. I'm going to continue to add my bubbling noise. I'm going to add sound effects. I'm going to add footsteps, and I'm going to level them so they sound good based on the dialogue, and get everything kind of mixed where it needs to be. But keep in mind, dialogue is usually mixed around -12. Everything else is going to be a little bit quieter because we want the dialogue to be the most prominent audio in this in the project here. So I'm going to continue doing that, adding sound effects, and then we're going to come back and kind of take a look at what we got. All right, guys, I have finished the sound mix. I've done some ambient noise and some sound effects, and let's kind of show you what I've got here. I'll show you a little bit of what we've got here. I'm going to kind of scroll into this a little bit and show. We've got like the bubbly noise in the background. Let's give that a test right here, play through it a little bit. Actually, I'm going to show a part with some footsteps here. Just like right here as he walks back.
What do you mean?
After the red pepper.
Nothing.
So I got some footsteps in there. There's probably some other things I could add, like the stirring noise in the pot and things like that. But for right now, that's sounding pretty good. I've got a bunch of ambient noise and sound effects, and you can add as many sound effects as you want to. The more sound, usually the more sound that you kind of add, the more levels and layers you add to it, it sounds more organic and realistic. So right now we're going to work on music.